I decided to put this guide together since there isn't anything like this up right now. Other guides I found skip a lot of potential buffs or don't give you a full idea of how you should be playing. I tried my best to summarize all of my BDO and Nodeware knowledge. If I felt I was not experienced, I link places to get experience. I go over a general idea of how to play roles, what gear you need, consumables, equipment setup, as well as any other optimizations I think you should know being a Nodeware player. This ended up being really long, so I have timestamps in the description for each section. I try to be as general as possible when talking about roles in war, and I just wanted to give a general idea of how to play in certain roles, such as ranged. You could play completely differently in these classes as you want. Other guys don't really give an idea or gameplay examples, so I try to be as general as possible. I don't go over things such as base building. I'm just aiming this guide towards a player that perhaps has played BDO PvE for a while and wants to step into the Nodeware scene. And yeah, that's it. Let's get started with the guide. So gearing for cap Nodeware. Now the most important thing in cap Nodeware is you hit the caps. Once that's done, you can swap out your main gear for alternate gear that has extra stats that are not capped, and everything adds up. So it is definitely worth doing what I'm going to suggest here. First and foremost, you could view the cap, just open the map, click Nodeware information, and mouse over a node in whatever region your guild is placed on. In this case, let's say your guild is placed for a T1, and you got selected for Balanos, just go over a Balanos node and you'll be able to see your cap limits and compare if you actually have the gear for it. If it's green, you're good. Now, we want things that are not listed. Looking at stats, we want any missing stats to hit the caps first and foremost. Crit damage, crit rate, stamina, defense nullifying, HP and hit, back attack, air attack, down attack, or special attack, and HP for more subtle healing, as I'll go into next. Now gearing, I'm going to start with the necklace slot. The best option is the subtle necklace, as it gets a skill that heals a percentage of HP, and it heals out the total amount. So let's say you have 11k and you're on T1. Right now the cap on T1 is 6.5. It'll still heal looking at the 11k, so you basically just get a full heal. Now each enhancement level gives 20% more healing, so you could get away with Try or Tet with 60 or 80%. You don't really need the pen for 100%. However, you could have it, just in case. For belts, belt slot, again, a saddle is the best option since you get the skill that gives a percentage of Black Spirit Rage. In this case, Tet gives 80%, which is very good. Again, you could get pen that gives 100%. However, it doesn't go over your total BSR cap. So let's say I have a cap of 110 and I have 50% BSR. The extra BSR is just not going to be added. So you're effectively just wasting your BSR. So make sure to use your BSR what you have before you use an auto skill. These auto skills are also SA, so it's a free SA. Moving on for rings. Rings, the best option right now, I believe, would be the ring cups, as they have a 3% critical hit damage. You just get this abnormal progression. So if you play normally, you're going to put cups in your rings, and then you would just use those. Might have older cups. The older cups also give the same, so you don't really need Karazaz if you're on an older account, but should be fine. There also is the Cultist Black Ring. This is a alternate option. Now, if you have an old account, pre-2019, and you have two characters that are pre-2019, you could run the old main story quest, run that quest, and you eventually get Cultist Black Ring, which is a quest reward. They give 200 stamina. It is an alternative. So it's an option. Maybe you're a returning player and you don't have the 3% critical hit damage. Feel free to run the Cultist Black Ring, or if you want more stamina, of course. Moving on, main hand. Now, main hand, there isn't a special weapon you can swap out. But if you have a Sovereign, feel free to use the Reforged Stones, down attack, critical hit rate, critical hit damage, back attack, and BSR recovery. Or you could also use air attack if you'd rather have that. Moving on to Awakening Weapon. First, slot in a Garmoth Heart for the extra crystal slots and 3% critical damage. Now, Karana's Heart if you cannot get a Garmoth Heart for the hit damage. And if you have a Sovereign, use the same Reforged Stones as I mentioned before. You could take the ones that I have from my list, or you could use Air Attack instead. Moving on to Offhand. Again, slot in a Garmoth Heart. Now, this case, you'll just get 100 stam from it and some HP. However, again, it adds up. And use these Reforged Stones again. Kudum Heart also works, but it doesn't give stamina, only gives HP. So I say just hit the Garmoth. They are very affordable nowadays, and they just sit on the market. Now, moving on off gear, I'm going to be talking about food. Right now, you could just use Exquisite Quran Meal. Now, it gives everything. That's all you need. It gives a percentage damage, etc. Just use the Quran Meal. You could also use Nourishing Soup, which is kind of a special food item. It works with the Quran Meal, and it gives 200 HP and 100 stamina. Another 100 stamina, you just get some extra. However, it has a 22-hour cooldown, so this will not last the entirety of the Node War. So you could either pop it at the start or just try to pop it when you think you'll get max value. However, it is a very small amount of stats for 50 mil, so it's up to you if you actually want to use it. For buffs, church buffs and villas. Now, I grab these out of habit. However, you don't really have to grab them because you're most likely going to be hitting the caps anyways. You could grab Villa for the 200 HP, maybe get some tinfoil Lasado, or you don't hit the caps. However, you don't really need to get these if you don't hit the caps, but I'd say get them anyways. You might as well. They're not that expensive. Now, Alchemy Stones. Now, you could first use whatever you have at the moment. Most people have Vels. If you don't have Vels, you use Khan's Heart, but you can min-max these a bit more. Now, just make sure, of course, you have an Alch Stone. You could use Destruction Spirit Stone if you don't have one. Just make sure you have an Alch Stone first. If you think you want to get more value out of your Alchemy Stone, the next step would be Splendid or Shining Destruction. However, these are very unobtainable. My order is not going through after 4 years. And making these is very hard, and they delayed the Alchemy Stone update. If you're watching this in the future and the Alchemy Stone update made these obtainable, go for the Shining if you can. It gives, more attack speed, and attack speed does add up. I heard a long time ago, I read this in the Discord, that it doesn't give just 5% extra. It gives more since it gets put earlier in the calculation, but I don't know if that's actually true. Right now, if you can't get these, you could also use single-use stones. Now, these just sit on the marketplace. I know one of them you could get from Pit of the Undying. The other one is from like byproducts. These give the same as the previous ones did, like the Splendid and the Shining, for example. However, they are single-use. So they don't have 20 durability, and that's only enough for like 1.5 wars, since one durability is like 5 minutes. It's going to add up. Like, these are going to be very expensive. However, if you want the extra performance, you want the extra attack speed, some people live by them, go for it. Now, moving on to artifacts. Now, artifacts, you're going to have 2 of these for your Lightstone set that I'll get into. However, you can run Kabulas, Black Spirit Rage, max HP, max stamina. I'm not mentioning the upgraded artifacts since I don't believe they actually give any more stats. It's just cap, maybe some HP. I'd say run Kabulas if you could afford it, or run Black Spirit Rage max increase, and we also have some more discount options like max HP, maybe you don't hit the HP cap, or max stamina if you cannot afford the other options. But it really depends on you and how much you want to commit. For Lightstones, this also depends. This is personal preference, and it depends on your class. Some classes, they like the down attack, they like the back attack, they like the critical hit damage. It really depends. I run target openings, but it really just depends on you. So look from the list, see what's the most affordable for you, and go from there. For crystals, so you're going to want max percentage damage. Now, this is what I run, the one on the left, just usually for T1. I try to get the max attack speed, some absorptions for recovery on hit. I'm just going for things that are not capped. I'd say for these, we'll hit your class Discord, ask around. It depends on class. I don't want to recommend one thing and it's different for some other class. Maybe a class doesn't want absorptions. And the second one I have, I'm not hitting HP cap on T2, so I'm running some Hooms and some max HPs. Next, horse buffs. Now, if you have Krogdalos, you have a full Krogdalo set, I would say get C, because it gives 100 stamina, 100 HP for free. It's a 1 hour buff. However, it goes away when you die, so you have to reapply it every time you respawn if you want it. But you only need one person in like a party for the set, so you could have guildies come over and buff you. And if you have the Krogdawa horse, you don't really need C. You could just run whatever and it'll give all 3 buffs. So horse flute, you need a horse flute, as if you get separated from your horse, or as you dismount and you go to an objective and the objective you win the fight, you need to be able to call your horse right away. If you don't have the horse flute, you might be too far away. This is a standard item, so again, it's a pearl item, so the pearl shop is open. Now, if you're running a unicorn, you could use Earth of Life, which is E. It just gives this buff, recovers HP every 3 seconds. It lasts for a minute. It is pretty decent to use if you're just getting to a fight or you guys are grouping up. You might as well. It's like an extra shy buff in a way. Now, furniture buffs. Moving the furniture buffs, people usually recommend Calc's Wings for the 200 stamina, which is pretty good. You can always use Blessing and Mystic Beast, max HP if you need more HP. And another option, which I'm not really going to mention, is you could use Wolf Heads, which give 3 critical hit rate. Just the buff itself, the base buff on your character, if you don't want to use the elixirs of shock, for example. Now, speaking of elixirs, moving on to elixirs. So elixir/draughts, harmonies are the gold standard. That's usually what everyone uses. Of course, you have parties if you guys want to alternate buffs in a party. However, just use harmonies. That's the most simple way if you don't want to look into other options. Now, if you want to look into other options, you can look at elixir rotation. Now, if you have continuous care, this is just every buff in harmony, but you're popping the separate elixir. Now, you do save money doing this, as I found that this is a bit cheaper using blue elixirs. You just buy greens, turn them into blues, or just buy blues from the marketplace. When I did the math, it was a bit cheaper, or maybe you're an alchemist, you might as well use your alchemy talents and make a elixir rotation. It really just depends on if you want to deal with the hassle, since you're going to be filling like 20 slots in your bag with elixirs. Do you really want to do that? It depends on you. We also have cheaper but less effective elixirs. Now, I'm just going to mention these since they are a bit cheaper. Like, I think harmonies right now are 20 million and indignations are 1. So, there's the difference. However, you do lose stats using these alternatives. Just go on the marketplace, see whatever's the cheapest, the most accessible, and make your own decision on what you want to do. Now, moving on to perfumes. Now, deep C's are the standard and are very obtainable. Just run some AOS. You have a stockpile of them, and you might as well be doing ranked anyways if that's out. If not, just do some practice. Get some deep C's, get a stockpile for the winter. Also mentioning tenacity is basically deep C's, but they give some more HP and a bit more stats. You don't need to run these. I'm just adding them since they are an option, since they give the same percentage damage that deep C's do, but are not as accessible. Maybe you're watching this in the future and they just gave like 1,000 tenacities from login rewards. Then use the tenacities. If not, just use deep C's. It's the most simple. I'll also mention charms. Now, I wouldn't run these. I would just run the deep C's, but they are cheaper and they give 5% movement speed if you'd rather have 5% movement speed for some reason. Something's better than nothing. But again, it is totally up to you. The price difference may not even be worth it. Maybe charms will be like 100k at one point, and maybe there'd be an argument for it. But right now, I think they're 12 mil. So just run the deep C's. So immortals. Now, immortals are immortal versions of the previously mentioned perfumes. There's no immortal elixir rotation, but they do have harmonies. If you have a dive heavy playstyle, or you die more than 10 times in 15 minutes, consider immortals. If you like running it down, consider immortals. However, it usually isn't worth it. This is just personal preference. See how many times you die and see if this is worth using. Immortals don't go away when you die, so of course, if you like writing it down, it's an option. Now, whale tendons. Now, these are just the premier HP potions. Sturdy whale tendons are the best. You get CC'd, you're on the ground, you could pop a sturdy whale tendon, especially in T1, and you'll get up. You'll get up, 3 people are hitting you, you might get up after using a sturdy whale tendon. Of course, sturdies are the best, but you could also use blues or greens if you want to save silver. If you're CC'd, they apparently heal you a bit more, so, feel free to use them if you're on the ground. And yeah, definitely these are almost mandatory in war, even T1, just because of how much healing they give you. They make you so tanky, but they are very expensive. Like sturdies are almost 40 mil a pop, and how many times are you getting CC'd in a war? Like, it is expensive, does add up. Now, moving on to horse. Now, I'm gonna mention this. If you're a new player, you need a T10 Peggy to easily regroup. You could fly over enemies, and it's easier to regroup. And you need a T9 unicorn at least to be able to move in the desert. If you're in a desert war and you guys are fighting like in the desert itself, it's gonna be miserable. Imagine you disconnect. You're gonna be running back from Valencia City. It is so demoralizing. You're gonna be running on foot. If you're a class that is pretty slow, you're gonna be putting your weapon away. You're gonna be auto running for like 10 minutes. You're gonna be missing 10 minutes of gameplay. It's very sad. So just try your best. T10 Peggy, T9, they gave these out for free. So hopefully you picked the Peggy. If you picked the Doom, I'm sorry, it's over for you. Doom is good, but yeah, you better hope that was, you better hope your attempts actually work. Good luck. Now, Fairy. Now, this goes without saying. I might as well mention it. You need Tier 5. This isn't 2016 anymore. You can't get away clicking 1 on your keyboard or using a foot pedal or something when you can use a foot pedal for something else. You need Tier 5. The amount of HP it gives is crazy, and it's just a standard. Everyone should have Tier 5 by now. If you don't, well, the pro shop is open. And also have infinite potions. Now, infinite potions are almost mandatory. Now, of course, they're not mandatory. You could put your tent down in war nowadays and just buy potions, but that's some downtime. You could be doing something else. So, good luck. They aren't that expensive, 8 bill. They give these. They basically give these for free nowadays. Just fish for a week. You're fine. So add-ons. Now, buffs and debuffs on add-ons on the inherent class, as long as class skills do work. So they do not look at the caps. So for example, if I have a self buff that buffs me 10 AP, I'm going to get to 10 AP even if I'm over the cap. So keep this in mind with add-ons. Now, this is just an example. This is what I'd run when I was playing Deadeye. However, it really depends on your class. So I suggest looking at a class Discord, asking your fellow players if someone's doing really good in guild, just ask them what add-ons are you using and go from there. Moving on for self buffs, the same thing applies. So anything built in the class does work. Z buff is very, very good in Cap the War as it gives the extra AP. Even 200% Z buff is crazy damage. If you're going to commit for all that BSR. Of course, make sure to be using your normal self buffs all the time. For example, Call the Earth on Ranger. Use it when you can, free accuracy, and it works. Same with any E-buff you have. Use it whenever it's off cooldown. Put it in the middle of your screen. Use it every time you can. It's extra damage, and it adds up. To that effect, shy buffs work. That's how everyone stacks shies. Get on your shies and have them buff you. There are some easy fixes and easy solutions you can get with the war performance. A lot of new BDO players don't realize that you could zoom out your camera, so just with scroll wheel or through the menu. When in war, make sure your camera is at maximum distance, as players can engage from any angle. The more you can see, the better. The difference is pretty jarring. Furthering this, did you know that crop mode can increase FOV? Now, what do I mean by this? Well, if we go into the display settings, this is crop mode. Display height will add a almost black bar to the top and bottom of your screen, as so.
Now it actually does zoom out your camera. If you look at the side here, it's the beginning of the gate. Let's go to max crop mode. We see the entire gate. This is a pretty big difference in war. Of course you have the black bars, but you don't really sacrifice any vertical camera loss. Of course, it does zoom it out more, so things look smaller. However, you'll get used to it soon if you use this all the time. This is only optional though, but I really do suggest at least zooming your camera at the minimum. You can also expand the minimap. So the minimap can be expanded and you can see more. Yes, it zooms in the minimap, but you can see physically more things. For example, I have my guild member here. If I go all the way here, let's disappear, but you can kind of see more of the terrain. It is pretty useful for gauging threats, gauging what's going on. Next, I'm going to talk about effects. So most new players, effects are set opacity to 100. So for example, on Deadeye, if we do this, of course we're going to be zoomed in, it's not very visible. I could show the difference now if I go into effect opacity. So I have it 100, let's go to, I don't know, 30. Confirm. It's a lot more visible, you can see a lot more things on your screen. So I would suggest lowering effect opacity. Of course, you know, some people like roleplay that likes the effects, but if you want to do better in Node War, I'd suggest lowering it so at least 30%. Another thing you could do just for visibility is lowering your graphics settings to lowest optimal. Now, unfortunately, you know, your game won't look as good, but in Node War, it does help. It does really help seeing, you know, just straight visibility in fights. The game looks a lot worse. However, you know, even now my effects are almost invisible. You can kind of see them, but once you get a feel for your class, you won't really have to see the effects themselves. You'll just kind of know what everything does. Now, opacity does act a little bit different on the lowest graphics, so feel free to move it up. I usually have mine at 60.
Next, we have camera effects. I suggest you should turn off camera effects. I guess because the vibration affects combat heavily. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, let's turn it up. So I'll turn it up to 100. Now, I think the default is 50 because it's going to cause motion sickness. I mean, you can have it a little bit, but I suggest turning the effects down. Just because it is a little distracting when you need to focus on an objective. You can turn it to 0, or you can keep a little bit, but I suggest disabling it.
Another thing I would suggest is using quick slots. Now on Deadeye, which is the class I'm playing right now, there's no grab skill, but it's useful to know what skills you have off cooldown and what your options are. So I have mine pre-set up. Of course, when you're learning, you could have skill names or skill inputs, which I put. You can access quick slots by going to skill cooldown slot and just selecting, you would find the skill cooldown 1, this is cooldown 1, and it'll put it here, and you can put a little note and it will display underneath. Now these, of course, aren't mandatory, but let's say I'm doing an essay rotation, I want to see what options I have. Well, it helps gauge what to do next. In the next section, I am going to be going over melee, ranged, and support theory, and what you should be doing as a melee, ranged, or support player, depending on your class. Range theory. Now I'll be going over range theory and how to play as a ranged class. Right now I'm playing Deadeye, which is a relatively ranged class. However, it does have some mid-range tools, as you'll see in my demo. Before we start, the idea as ranged is to shoot onto an objective from inside our ball. So if I draw this out again, this here is going to be our ball as in our guild. And this here is going to be the objective. Let's just say it's a fort, for example. And this is the enemy ball. So the enemy ball is kind of on the fort, maybe a bit closer. As a ranged player, you could reliably play in our ball, shooting onto the objective, and in and around. So around here. If there is danger, you could reliably retreat into the safety of our ball or our guild push, while also applying constant pressure wherever you are in the ball. Now, I'll show an example of this. So this here is just some general gameplay. It's not a montage or anything. It's just how I would be playing on a ranged class.
This off. Brain, get off that one. I see you ratting one. Push. On base.
Yeah, Deadeye has the melee tools, not fully ranged, however, has the idea. So currently in this scenario, our guild owns this area of the map, as we own the river, and we have some structures built, while the enemy guild over here is on the back side of the fort, as we have another threat here, which is another guild.
Yeah. You're PA'd. Fight this. Drop everything on the space. Everything you have.
Yeah, just...
So safety over ball, safety over structures, and applying constant range pressure, as also cleaning up downs if you see any downs.
Hi. Can I get off the watch if you want? I can take over.
Burn. On green. Burn everything. It's gonna flip. Purge is gonna hard hit it.
Make sure you're
Purge is posturing.
constantly hitting the objective.
This should die here.
Okay, CC, that's okay.
Alright, all on base. All of you on base. Everyone. Put your body on base.
Looks like we're going for the base.
Keep damaging. Nice,
Yeah,
you got it.
we
Clear.
get the base.
That's amazing. Clear the shit. You're playing back towards our river.
And yeah, see, it wasn't safe anymore, so I went back to the backside of the ball, and I could constantly do something. As long as you keep shooting into the objective, into the enemy, applying that pressure, applying that CC, you're doing your job as a ranged class.
One person in. I have.
Second FT up on that pig. Get in, load it.
It's loaded, I mean.
Main ball, go into Ventus. Get off the shit. Get off our build.
Okay. I have another example. What to do when we get pushed as range. Now in this example, we're in a different area. You could see our ball here. So this is the enemy ball as I'm facing towards them, and we have our own ball, which is here. Now looking at, just awareness wise, what is happening? Well, it looks like they've postured, and I am doing my normal thing when I'm shooting in. However, this Zerker, it looks like they are going to engage. So let's see what happens. Yeah, and they do engage. So you have to make a decision. Do we want to go backwards into our own ball, or you could also go off on the side, as I showed. So I believe in this clip I go off on the side, as long as it's safe to do so.
We still have 37 minutes.
And I re-enter and apply my pressure again from the outside, helping our own ball recover.
We don't know how much time's on
Yeah,
this one.
don't worry. On Kato, we have.
I meant on Kato, sorry.
Yes, and then we help our guild recover, and we clean up any downs.
15%.
Everyone's really wanting to bully us today.
So that's good. That was a good recovery. So like I said before, you're frontward facing in the ball, and you're shooting into the objective. So in this case, I believe the objective is the enemy. Now we can see how safe it is from here. This is the safe area. So if I ever get into trouble, I could run backwards into the safe area, and then again, I'm doing everything I can in the moment.
Flex, leave that to Flex.
Flex, that's all you. Rest of us are
Until they
killing.
need
We're
help.
killing wall.
Until Flex needs help.
Yeah, it wasn't safe anymore, so I backed up into our ball, and I believe I'm doing another objective.
Kill them on port. Kill them
I'll
on
land
port.
with a shot caller.
Watch the divers. The divers are in.
And be out if you need. Be out if you need behind our structures.
Luckily, it wasn't targeted, so it was safe to be on the outskirts. And you could also limit test yourself by going, splitting up from the ball and shooting into it. But I don't really suggest doing that unless maybe on T1, as it's a lot more forgiving. You could just hold down an iframe and get up a lot of the time.
Munch. Throw range into this.
And again, it depends on class and depends on your own
Just to
ability.
arrange on the
So
floor.
when you get
Target's
safe,
pushing
and
unified
more
right
confident,
now. Just kill.
you'll be able to do that.
You have speed, you have everything, you have everything.
And right now, I suggest just staying with your
Speed on
ball
green.
Marcus back.
and splitting off when you believe it's not safe anymore.
Keys.
So yes, in summary, you need to place yourself away from the main fight but close enough to have an impact. You are responsible for applying constant pressure onto objectives and enemies, as well as cleaning up any downs. And when engaged, feel free to fall back with the ball or slip out and slip back in and help with recovery. Now, Skirmisher Melee. Now, as a melee player, or a skirmisher player, differentiated from Frontline, as I'll show later in the video, you are usually the one to initiate the ball fight. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, looking at our previous example, instead of shooting into an objective, you want to disrupt the enemy. So let's say this is an enemy ball here in red, and this is our ball normally. Instead of playing here as arranged, you would instead want to pre-engage and disrupt the enemy before they could posture or get into the fight, before they engage. So you would stop them and constantly pressure them. Not constantly pressure like ranged. However, you're going to want to interfere with their DPS line as much as you can, such as like rangers, casters, etc. Stopping them from, doing their thing and stopping the ranged pressure. Constantly looking for different chances to engage. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I'll do a few examples. Skirmisher classes or skirmisher melee. Since you are the opener, you start the fight, you initiate the fight at times. Since you're constantly looking for opportunities to dive into the enemy ball, you should dive deep as you can to get more CCs to interrupt their backline and constantly look for a chance to engage. You should prioritize ranged classes as they are applying their own pressure onto your ball. You should disengage if you have everything in cooldown or no V, or literally the only person fighting, as staying alive is a good resource. Don't greed if you're about to be hard targeted. What do I mean by this? So this is a first example. This is a Alright. I believe we own 4 in this example.
Turn into wash, They're pull back in,
There's some RBFing. Shocklord says turn into
Ellie,
wash.
watch Ellie. Go hard into wash. You have to
Hard
aim
into
into
wash,
the
and-
get that FT down. You stun on their backline. Don't let that FT build.
Here we have a vacuum, giving an opportunity for our own ball to
Stuns on green.
attack.
Get that FT down.
Yeah, just creating those opportunities instead of cleaning them up. Now in this example, the person prefer a fast dive before the enemies are prepared to counter us, but it depends how fast your team can follow up. For example, if your guild cannot follow up, well, you should play a little bit differently, maybe a bit slower. Another example of creating an opportunity.
Turn into purge.
You turn in a purge, you capitalize on them balled up.
Big CCs on purge. Keep going,
And
keep
yeah,
going on purge.
Once the fight gets
Back on
very
wash.
chaotic,
Actually, into
try
BNE,
to
the weaker guild.
play the sides and not the middle to avoid
BNE,
getting
they're
melted,
BNE.
unless you have very high sustain and survivability.
Purge's flag is on ping.
BNA's misted. Is he misted?
Hard fight it. Keep hard fighting it. Nice job. Wash is in. 18. Your P8 on the push. Ride around, play last hit. It's gonna burn fast. 13. Everyone on it. Everyone. Purge. Back to the FT. If you're
No,
alive,
watch
back
us
to the
in.
watch.
No, push into wash this thing from behind.
If it's not needed, don't die. Stay alive while you
Kill that
can.
watch.
You're more
2%.
useful if
Sorry,
you're alive.
just pulled off the
Oh, it did die. Beautiful.
Wash is gonna be big spawning there.
Do they have a supply depot?
Go around the. Come on,
Yeah, it's
companions,
kind of
around.
stuck though.
We're gonna go around the rock and hit them in the back.
Wash up
Break the boats.
rocks.
And yeah, create an opportunity for your team to capitalize.
On it, on it, on it. Lots of damage. We clear this, clear this. Hit him in the back, hit him in the back. Let's go. Go into them, in the northwest, in the northwest. Shy buffs, everything, E-buffs, into them, into them, into them. All the way, all the way, all the way through, all the way through.
soon, you need to get the flame towers down.
They're grouping south.
Clean this up, clean this up, clean this up, clean this up. Somebody look.
So in summary,
Yeah, they're out.
soft engage and melee skirmishers
They just ran
are usually the ones that initiate the ball fight. Ideally, you want to interfere with their DPS line as much as you can, and you could have a fast dive. However, make sure your engage is take into account how fast your guild is. It depends how fast your guild can follow up. Once the fight begins, it gets kind of chaotic and messy, so play the sides once you've done your initial CC to avoid getting melted unless you have very high sustain and survivability. Feel free to disengage when your core skills are on cooldown. Now, not awakening core, just the core skills you use in general. Or if you're alone in an enemy group, as you don't really want to be 1v guilding most of the time. Now, you're not Suicide Squad, so check your V, when to disengage, and don't greed. You can also clean up ones that are split from their ball,
Don't let that FT build.
but don't greed them too much.
Big stuns on greens.
So melee frontline. Now, as melee frontline, you are the hard engaged. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I have paint open again. So I'm going to go for, here is an objective, and let's say there's an enemy ball around an objective. So let's draw, this is our ball. So as melee frontline, you are almost the main character. You lead your guild's position, first off. So let's say this is us here. Now, when the shot caller asks to engage, you are the main engage. So you dive when they ask you to dive. So they'll ask you to dive, you go in on top of the enemy ball and on top of the objective. You create the main opportunity when your guild is diving. Your guild should follow up on your plays. This entire ball should go when you go. Of course, and you disengage when the shot caller tells you to save your life or we're retreating. You could also counter engage. So when the enemy engages and you don't get asked to retreat, you will fight with the enemy. Now this is a little vague what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to show some examples. First off, I believe this is just a general engage. Now, a little disclaimer, I usually personally only played skirmish and range. However, I try my best to give some ideas like I did for the other sections. So I just want to have a general idea of how to play, not a full one-to-one class guide for each class, which I did before. I just wanted to give a general idea. So here, let's see they're engaging. Here I have an example where an enemy ball is engaging this our ball here. So what happens is they attack us and we almost react. Of course, this depends on what you're being told to do. In this case, the shot caller asked them to counter engage, so that's what they're doing. So it's a short clip, but it gives the general idea of you are looking to react to what the enemy is doing. Instead of like ranged, you could back up and go back in, or skirmisher, you're trying to create an opportunity. Here, you are directly reacting to what's happening. Here's another example of you being the opener. as you almost create an opportunity for your yield numbers. However, you're the main opportunity. So I'm going to do another gameplay example of just being in the fight. So also as a frontline, you should try your best to keep your pressure off your range at skirmishers and rats. And yeah, hopefully I did a general idea. First off, lead the guild your ball's position, as your presence kind of determines where your ball is going to be. Keep pressure off range skirmishers. You are the engaged. When the caller asks you to engage, you will engage and make opportunities for your team to follow up. Your guild should and will follow up on your plays. Disengage when the caller tells you to, or you want to save your life. And counter engage if your caller tells you to, and when their ball dives, you could counter grab them and counter dive them. Again, depends on what your caller is telling you to do. For support, I decided to skip this section. I personally have not played support before. It's honestly just shy for support, as you're just buffing your team. So I found a channel. I suggest checking this channel out. I'll put links in the description, just because I don't want to commentate on something that I've never done before. So there are more war roles that I did not really go into, such as elephant riding or being cannoneer. I personally have not done these roles before in war, so I don't want to do a full section on them. However, there are more guides if you want to read into it. I'll show one on screen and I'll put one in the description if you'd like to check out these two. So traps are something you would need in war. You could simply go to a guild military supply manager in major cities, right click, and just buy the traps. There are a few types: stun traps stun people, venom traps do a debuff, flame traps knock people off their horses and knock them down, ankle traps put a 40% movement speed debuff, which is kind of toxic, and elephant traps dismount elephant riders. So you just buy them. Make sure you have allowance from your guild. You have to ask your officers or whoever is in charge to give you allowance. Once you have the traps, simply just go in your inventory, right click, use it. Simple as that. Place it. If you have some downtime, maybe not being pushed, or sometimes shot callers will ask you to place the trap. For upgrade materials, now as a new player or just a new Node War player, you're just going to be upgrading the barricades. So just bring melted copper shards and iron ingots, that's all you need. They'll ask you to give a barricade and you just tap that barricade up a little bit. Moving on to polished stone. Now you're going to need polished stone to repair a fort. So if a fort is damaged, just tap that fort up with polished stone. And yeah, it'll heal it a bit. The speed of this tap is actually affected by life skills. Exit lag may help with ping stability or ping trades. Some players say it helps with disconnecting if you have disconnecting issues. Lots of BDO players have exit lag. I'd suggest it, as I had an issue with DCing, but this was in the ocean when I was bartering. However, it does help and it does make an impact with BDO, just smoothing things out. If you disconnect a lot, or if you have players just like standing still, like a light disconnect, or you get rubber banded, try exit lag. It might help or it might not. It does cost a lot. I think it's like $15 a month. I have my subscription up, but you know, anything for BDO. Next, foot pedal. Now this isn't really necessary, but it does really help. It helps free up fingers for when you're doing some kind of SE rotation, maybe on a high APM class. You don't really want to move your finger all the way up to 1 to hit a whale tendon. You could just put on your foot pedal. And even with pinging, if you need to ping something, having a ping on a foot pedal, it really helps out. You don't really need to stop your flow, stop your animation, stop whatever. It's not necessary, but it does help, so I'd really recommend it. Joining a guild. So if you're a new player and you don't know where to start regarding entering the scene and joining a guild, I suggest start with T1. Just look at the world chat spam. These guilds keep spamming their advertisements every single day. Look at world chat and find one you like from the list. Some guilds have gear requirements, but if you hit the caps or are really wanting to get into the scene and wanting to improve as a player, wanting to learn, most guilds will take you. Just see if you could check out the Discord, see if you like the people, and go for it. So I just want to do a final recap of what I would do before war. So first off, make sure you have your gear on and you have your capped gear. So I'm just running my main gear right now. And oh, I need my saddles. So I got my saddles, have them on, make sure I have my mount. My mount's here. It's on the right character. I have my ALC stone. Now, I'm just using my Vel's Heart right now for this example, but you could have the enhanced ones I mentioned earlier. First, we need Villa and Church. Now, you don't actually have to go to the church anymore. You can just open your tent. So put your tent down. Villa. I don't have a valid Villa. Villa. This is Church buff. Let's get them for tinfoil just in case. Okay, now what tier are we on? Well, right now I don't have a war, but let's say we were on T2. So I'm here for T2. Oh, what am I missing? Well, I'm missing some AP and missing some HP. So that means I need to equip my HP set. Oh, it already is applied. Equip my UI, whatever UI I want. Eat my cron meal. Okay, once that's done, I will go get my furniture buff, which I need HP. So you can either use Scroll Mystic Beast or I'm going to use a head I have in my house here. Here it is. So 100 HP. There you go. I got my HP to help hit the cap. Now, I don't think I don't have enough, but that's just because I am a gearlet. Yes. Other than that, you have my ALC stone, so I would use my ALC stone. HP, have everything I can. Then I want to make sure I have my elixirs. So I'm using elixir rotation right now. Oh, well, looks like all my elixirs are still up to date. I'm out of perfumes. So do I have any deep seas? Well, I have one. So I'll get my deep sea and then my immortal deep seas if I want immortals instead. And yes, this is all set up so I can simply right click and use it with continuous care. It's great. From there, I'll call my mount. And I will use my mount buff, spacebar, for ocean ore. There's some even more HP and stamina. And yeah, from there, I should be good. I need whale tendons now. So we get my whale tendons. So let's get my superiors, and I'm feeling rich today. So I want to have my sturdy whale tendons. Here they are. They're on the bar. I have them binded to my foot pedal. So I could simply click my foot pedal. There we go. So you use the basic whale tendon. I have another foot pedal for this. And I should be ready. Let me make sure my graphics are on the lowest I can. Yes, I have it on very low. Lowest optimal. That sometimes causes crashes for me. So I decided to use very low. Does depend on your own personal preference though. Yeah, and that's basically it. I should be ready for war, so I just yes up on the bot, or however the guild works. You would just yes up here after you yes up on the bot once you applied for node war. Make sure I have the right add-ons. So right now I am, yes, I have the right add-ons for T1 and I have PvP capped. I have my soup ready, but I won't pop it yet since it has a 22-hour cooldown, so I'd pop it mid-war if something's happening or right when it starts to get max value. Also, it depends if we are fighting in the desert or not. If we are, I need a compass. So you could get these sealed compasses, or you could buy one from the marketplace. You get these parts from Explorer's Compass, combine 3 of them. It depends what event is going on right now. If you're on the pro shop, it really just depends. Also, don't forget, you need to have upgrades. So I'd have my polished stones, just in case they need me to tap the fort up. I would have my copper shards and iron ingots. And then I have traps ready, but you would go buy traps. So I would go to the military supply manager. Hey, what's up? And I would want my traps. So I want stun traps today, venom traps, elephant traps, etc. And if I was building, I would want annex assemblies. However, I didn't really go into that. Yes, that should be it. I should be ready for war. And that's the end of the guide. Thanks for watching to the end. If you watched this long, it was like an hour long. I appreciate it. If there's anything I missed, just feel free to leave a comment and I'll pin it, or I'll make a pinned comment and I'll put it at the top. I try to be as thorough as possible. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.